Okay, I'm just gonna start talking. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, what's good? The last time I posted a video was in 2020. And honestly, I haven't posted another video, one, because I just genuinely didn't want to. And also, I just felt like, God wasn't really wanting me to use this platform for anything else. That was until maybe like earlier this week. I was like praying about how I wanted to share this story, and I felt like God was saying, go ahead and make a YouTube video. So that's what I'm doing. The last time I posted a video was about my recap of how 2020 went. And so this video is all about sharing what happened from that point until this point, which is about 2 weeks post graduation. I'm officially a doctor, y'all. It still hasn't fully sunk in. But yeah, so this is really just sharing my testimony. When I left off in that video, I was truly probably at the lowest point I've ever been in my life, like career-wise, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Like, I was really struggling. And what you all don't know is that during 2020, I took my first round of board exams and I failed. I failed twice, actually. So the first time I failed was about, I think in the fall. That's when I finally took it. And I failed. I was devastated. Honestly, I kind of contemplated quitting medical school, or at least taking a year off at that point. But, my parents and I kind of talked about it, and I was like, no, like, I'm gonna try again. Like, I know that I can do it the next time. So my school gave me some time to kind of take like an elective while I studied for my second attempt. And I took it, I think end of February, early March of 2021. Took it again. I also failed the second time. At this point, I was like, okay, like something is actually wrong. I don't really know what to do. And the state of Texas, where I'm at, only allows 3 attempts for your board exams. And I was like, at this point, you either take it again and you pass, or you don't. And for me, one thing that I remember thinking, which I was kind of ashamed to think at the time, but I think it's important to share, is I remember feeling almost a sense of relief or solace, knowing that if I took it again and I failed, then at least I wouldn't have to bear the burden of being a physician, of taking care of people, of like having someone else's life in my hands. Which speaks to how really low in my self-esteem and my motivation for pursuing medicine was at that point. And so I kind of started my third and last study attempt, like keeping that in the back of my head. Like, I mean, if it doesn't work out, it just doesn't work out. You're just gonna have to figure out something else. Some people might say, okay, but girl, you have all that debt. Like, what job are you gonna get that's gonna be able to help you pay that off or whatever? At that point, I didn't care. I was just like, I'm gonna do it. But in the back of my mind, knowing that like, hey, if it doesn't work out, you tried your best, sort of thing. Which, looking back, it makes me kind of emotional, thinking like, wow, I was really ready to just quit, to really just let it all go and not have any cares about it at all. So that's kind of sad and difficult to think about now, but I think it's important to share because, maybe somebody on the other side of the screen is like contemplating that, and I just want you to know that you're not the only one feeling that way. And it's okay if that's your starting point when it comes to trying again. You have to start somewhere, right? So fast forward to at this point, we're now in May, literally a year ago last year. I'm studying for my final attempt for my level 1 COMLEX exam, and I'm at home at this point, and I'm doing a board prep course. Now I should mention, speaking of board prep courses, I used a board prep course for, I think, my first and second attempt. The difference between the first and second attempt and this last attempt was the fact that I chose a board prep that was specific for me. Like, it was a one-on-one session. It wasn't like in a group setting. I didn't know that I needed that, just to kind of keep myself accountable and not really worry about whatever anyone else was doing. And so if you're kind of in that boat, definitely don't shy away from pursuing a board prep program, but maybe think about what kind of board prep program you might need. For me, I realized and know now moving forward, if I ever want to do a board prep program again, a one-to-one situation is better for me. I met with this tutor, I think once or twice a week. We set a schedule, we set specific topics I was supposed to cover, deadlines for those topics to be covered, the amount of questions I was going to do. So really just setting a very strict and detailed study schedule, which is something I was having a lot of trouble doing, especially during 2020, because my mind was just not, I was just not there mentally. And I didn't really have the capacity to just organize myself in that way. There's a lot of factors that contributed to that, but I think it just speaks to just how I needed to be more self-aware and reflective. Hindsight 2020, you know? Okay, so I'm doing this board prep program. Things are, picking up a little bit. I'm starting to see improvement in my practice test. And finally, at this point, I'm ready to take my exam. I remember I took it July 3rd of 2021. I took the exam and the following day was July 4th. I went on a trip to go see my sister in Atlanta. It was a bomb time. And I said, God, it's in your hands. I left that exam feeling like I had given it everything. And I was like, there's nothing more that I could have done. And for me, that was satisfying, at least to know that there wasn't anything that I felt like, man, I should have paced myself better, or man, I should have covered this more. Like I did everything that I could. And so for me, it was just helpful to know that, it is what it is. And again, remember, I was thinking in the back of my mind, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So a month later, I get my exam results, and by the grace of God, I finally passed my level 1 exam. And so I'm on cloud 9 at this point. I'm ready to, start my 4th year of medical school. I should let you guys know. So I was in the middle of trying to study for my board exams, like my reattempts, right? While I was in my clinical rotations. So I took time off to take my exam to study for it, came back, did some rotations, then had to come off again to restudy and take my final attempt. So at this point I have several rotations that I have to make up. But I was ready. I was ready to do that. I was ready to do whatever it took to not only finish those core rotations, but do my electives for 4th year. I had plans to get an away rotation in the specialty of my choice, and I was ready, y'all. So at this point, it's like August, or like a couple days before August, and we have this boot camp session for our 4th year. So I go in, and then I get an email from some of our admin kind of touching base with me to see how I was gonna go about my 4th year. So I go in and I meet with them, and I'm being told that I should consider taking a year off. They don't think that with all the credits that I have to make up, I'd be able to graduate on time. And given my board score history, they didn't think that I'd be able to match at all. And they're saying, you know, maybe you should pursue other job opportunities outside of medicine, like research, this and that. And the entire time I'm sitting there, my blood is boiling. And I'm genuinely so confused because I'm like, this is not at all what I thought was going to happen. I thought that at this point, everybody had seen that I'd proven myself capable of passing the exam. Yes, it took several attempts, but I did it. And I'm ready to come back and work and do what I need to do to get to the next point of my career, right? That was not the case. And I remember, I should give context to this. Before the meeting started, I kind of had an idea of what they wanted to talk about, right? So I had already created a schedule for how I thought I'd be able to fit in my makeup rotations, my fourth year electives, an away rotation, and graduate all on time. And as well as fitting in studying for my level 2 board exam because I hadn't taken it yet. So I came into the meeting prepared to give my spiel and honestly excited to talk about it. And then I start hearing things like, oh, we don't think you're gonna match at all. We don't think you're gonna be able to graduate on time, maybe consider other jobs. And for me, it was not only discouraging, but I was like, wow, these people really, did they ever believe in me? It speaks to, it's another point that I wanna bring up, like, sometimes when you have a dream, you have a goal or a purpose in life, it's very possible that the people who are supposed to help you get there, or not even help you get there, but the people who are like above you may not believe in that dream, may not see a way for it to be possible. But if God has told you specifically that this is how it's gonna be, this is how he's gonna get you through, then it's like, bump whatever anyone else has to say. Like, you've been called, and so God is gonna make a way, period. Whether or not other people agree is none of your business at this point, you see? I sat in that meeting, I let everybody talk, and then I said, are you absolutely sure that you don't think that I would not only be able to match, but you don't think I'm gonna be able to graduate on time? And they said, yep, we don't think so. So I said, okay. I turned around, opened my laptop, and showed them the entire spreadsheet I'd made of my schedule and how I think it would work and how I think it'd be able to align with our, handbook and everything like that. So I showed them the schedule and they said, oh, okay. They started to have kind of like second thoughts. They're like, okay, email this to us. We'll see what we can do. The following week, I get an email saying your schedule has been approved. You start on this day. I still had my stuff in my apartment. I hadn't officially moved back to San Antonio. And so I'm dealing with all of this, meanwhile trying to juggle, how am I supposed to go and like get everything back to San Antonio? And the email I get saying that I'm approved basically comes in at the end of like a Friday saying that, by the way, you're starting your OB makeup rotation the following week, which when I get my schedule, it actually starts that Sunday. And it's like a 12-hour shift. And I'm like, oh, so this is happening now. So I say all that to give context. It was a very stressful, annoying time for me. I just thank God for giving me like strength and also giving me the words to speak in that meeting to really just stand up for myself. Because, there wasn't really a time where I ever had to do that. To stand up for myself in terms of what I knew that I was capable of for my career. So we fast forward, I finished my OB rotation and my level 2 exam is scheduled for the end of that rotation. I go and I take the exam and unfortunately I fail it. I don't think devastated is the right word. I was truly just like embarrassed and angry at myself and God because I thought that I had gotten over the hump of constantly like failing and having to retake exams. Like I really thought that I was done with that. So I remember the day I got the results, It was like the day before I was taking my COMAT for my OB rotation. COMATs are like shelf exams, basically. Yeah, so I get the results the day before I take my COMAT, and I'm like, I literally have to compartmentalize this. I'm not gonna think about this at all. I need to take this COMAT and I need to pass. And so, you know, I made that decision. I went in and I took my COMAT, and by God's grace, I passed that, moved on to the next rotation. But, you know, I still had to figure out, how am I gonna retake this exam, pass it, and also get my scores in on time for my applications. Because at this point, I'm not only making up rotations, I'm not only studying for my level 2 exam, I'm also applying for residency. Y'all, like, they told us fourth year was gonna be chill. They should really say second semester of fourth year is more chill. And I would honestly say second semester of fourth year after match is more chill, because the stress, the financial burden, the just emotional like roller coaster that you're going through trying to narrow down what programs you're going to apply to, go to all of these like open house, you know, online open house events online, trying to like meet these people, see if like you feel like you would see yourself. It's a lot, all while being on rotations, all while, you know, studying for a board exam. And it wasn't just me studying while on rotations. A lot of people had to do the same thing, but I'm just saying, like, it was just a very stressful time for everybody. So now I'm in a situation where I have to retake my exam, as well as figure out how is this going to impact my applications and future interviews. And so I talked to my, you know, career advisor, and he was like, look, your first priority is your board exam. Don't worry about your applications. You've already submitted them. At this point, just take the exam. So I go through that next rotation, and the following rotation is an elective, which happens to be online, which was very helpful because it allowed me more flexibility to study. Fourth year is kind of a little bit better because you can kind of pick and choose what electives you can. And like, I thank God that I really feel like God had his hand in that, because the amount of flexibility I was able to have, like just the creativity and creating that schedule, it did not come from me. So he definitely had his hand in that. So fast forward, I go through, I study for that exam, I take it, by God's grace, I pass. The relief I felt was amazing, but it was also very short-lived, because I had to then update all of the programs I'd applied to, at least the ones I hadn't heard back from, and be like, hey, I have an updated score. Please, you know, look at my application again. I'd really appreciate if you would consider me for an interview, blah, blah, blah. So I do that, and it's like radio silence from, at this point, it's November to March, which is match. I didn't hear anything from any program for that time period. Now, typically by December, everybody knows, or everybody has had, like, you know, your interviews from the programs that feel like you would be a best fit. It is possible to have interviews after the December period. You can have interviews as late as like February, honestly. I hadn't heard from anybody. And so I'm still on my rotations, finishing my core rotations, doing my electives. And I remember like sending letters of interest, like to all of the programs that I felt like I could get into, or that I really wanted to get into. I sent all of those and didn't hear back from them. Or if I did hear back from them, it was a rejection. So Christmas comes, I go home, January of 2022 starts, and typically around January, if you are a person of faith and you're based in a home church, typically churches like to go on a fast. And so I really took this opportunity to be serious about going on a fast. And I decided to do, it wasn't a Daniel fast, but it was a variation of it. I was basically not gonna have any, if you're interested, I basically told myself I wasn't gonna have any processed foods, any foods with real like sugar or added like sweetness, if that makes sense. And I did that for 21 days, and I felt like God was asking me to do it for another 20 days. And when that 20 days came, he was like, nah, I want you to go through until after match. So at this point, it's like 3 months into this fast. And I have never taken a fast this seriously before in my life, but I genuinely was like, this is my future. This is my career. So whatever I have to do, like, I need, God, your guidance, and I need to be quiet enough to hear what you're saying. I also kind of like took a break from social media, in a sense, like I wasn't on there like that. And I was really intentional about what I was listening to music wise, what I was watching like on Netflix and Hulu. Like I needed to hear what God was saying. And while he didn't tell me what program I was gonna match into, what state I was gonna match into, he didn't tell me nothing about that. He was getting to the heart of who I was and who I needed to become to handle that blessing. For example, I had a notebook, a journal like this, that I had filled up, and I think I had another one in addition to this one. And from like January on, I was just writing the things that God was revealing about myself, about the ways I responded to criticism, for example, the ways that I was prideful and didn't like to invite people into like times where I was hurting or I needed help. Like that right there is probably like the biggest character, I guess, flaw or weakness that I have actively tried to just cancel out of my life. I say all that to say that I have an issue, or I should say I had an issue with asking for help, and by the grace of God, I'm gonna ask for help from now on. Like, I don't need to do things by myself. No, I'm not doing that anymore.